all want to do something good for the world. But how does one person achieve an impact when the scale of the problem we're trying to address is so huge? From global warming to the loss of biodiversity, to the hundreds of millions of refugees that are coming. How can one person make any difference, you may ask? Well, we're not going to design think our way out of these huge problems or invent one new technology that's going to solve all the problems. But we'd like to introduce you to a method that we think can have a really big impact, and it's called impact innovation. Impact innovation is one, a way to systematically come up with an innovative solution, and two, it's a way to plan and then measure the work that you have done from a local scale to the global scale. Let's imagine 3 applications of impact innovation. First one, imagine a group of young kids. They really care about the amputee dog. There's a dog that is losing a limb. And so they 3D design and 3D print a prosthetics that they attach and help the dog. Case number 2, imagine a group of young entrepreneurs and engineers. They came up with a robot that they can put into the ocean and that can go and measure the amount of microplastic in the sea. Case number 3, imagine a group of retirees. They really want to reduce the plastic pollution in their neighborhood, and they found that in the lake, close to them, there is a water hyacinth, an invasive species that they can use and weave and make them into eco bags. You understand those ideas, but you still may be skeptical whether those concepts can have an impact. And so I would like to introduce you to the impact innovation framework by using 2 other frameworks that you may be more familiar with: design thinking and the theory of change. Design thinking is a method or framework that has become very popular in these last few years, and it's a way for people from different backgrounds to work together and systematically come up with innovative ideas. But unfortunately, most of the time design thinking does not leave the meeting room. We could break it down into 5 famous steps. The first step is empathy, to trying to innovate from the perspective of the user. Step number 2, we are defining more specifically what are the needs of the user or the desires of the user, and also the resource available. Step number 3, we are using ideation. So we are coming up with a large quantity of ideas before we select the best quality ones. Step number 4, we are prototyping quickly. So you're just using things that are available to us. And step number 5, we are testing or experiencing our ideas. Using this technique, design thinking, not only once, but multiple times, you can approximate and getting closer and closer to have an idea that can have an impact. Design thinking is a great method for people to come up with a lot of ideas, but this is not really a way to plan or measure the impact that your project is going to have. And this is exactly where the theory of change comes into play. The theory of change is a framework that was developed and that is commonly used in the philanthropic management sector and social sector to most of the time measure how many dollars have what sort of impact in society. So it's a very logical framework. Funnily enough, it's also broken down into 5 steps. The first step is the inputs. Inputs refer to all the resources that are necessary to make that activity happen. So it's the money, the space, the time, material that you need. Step number 2 is the activity. So that can be a workshop, or producing a new product, or offering a new service or program. Step number 3 is the output. So it's the immediate thing that the activity will produce. So that can be that somebody gets to learn something, or they have a product in their hands, and so that's a benefit to them immediately. Step number 4 is the outcome. The outcome is this benefit will not benefit only one person, but probably also their families, or maybe their friends or their communities. And then step number 5 is the impact. And the impact is harder to measure because it's typically quite long-term, systemic change, and then there are a lot of other factors that may come into play. Impact innovation is the merging of those 2 theories. You have on one hand design thinking and the theory of change. And impact innovation is essentially nesting design thinking inside the theory of change as its activity step. And that allows to combine the super creativity that comes from design thinking and the measurability and accountability that exists using the theory of change framework. Let's take a simple example of the eco bag. Imagine, step number 1, that Afong and her retiree friend living in Southeast Asia, they are really tired of all the plastic bags in the environment. They also know that in a lake nearby, there's an invasive species called the water hyacinth that is growing. Step number 2, they organize a design thinking workshop where they get some water hyacinths, but also some designers, some local craftsmen, some potential buyers, and together they come up with a really snazzy design. Step number 3 is the output. During this design thinking workshop, they come up with those good designs and they make a prototype. Step number 4 is they start to manufacture those prototypes and make it at a bigger scale. And so now you start to see that we're sort of forming something that looks like a chain reaction. And then step number 5, which is much more long-term, it's the systemic impact. The people that used to be the weirdos wearing those eco bags, now they're the cool people. And then the people who are wearing plastic bags, now they really want to follow suit. You see, what seems like a small idea, and that's only a one person doing, can actually have sort of a chain reaction form and have a great impact. The whole point of impact innovation is to help you to have a framework, so you don't have to have a lot of money, a lot of resources and people and network, but so that you can actually have an impact locally and globally. So we hope that you'll make a good use of these methods of impact innovation.